But, the sliding scale, I don't think you know what good training is until you've had bad training. You don't know what good sushi is till you've had gas station sushi.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to Whiskey, Lead, and Steel, the official podcast of Aggressive Defensive Solutions, also known as Feelings Hurt While You Wait. Hey, today I'm here with Rick, myself Lee, and Jeremy, and we're going to talk about how do you get good training. So, Rick?
So how do you know that you're getting good training?
How do you know you're getting good training? Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm looking for, and quite honestly, this is one of the reasons that we decided to get into the podcast business, right? Is we looked around and there's a lot of less than desirable, less than fantastic training out there in the community and in the space. One of the things that I look for when I start to figure out whether or not I'm getting good training is whether or not the instructors have the depth of the background that we're looking for. Amongst the three of us, there's damn near 100 years worth of training and military experience and law enforcement experience here. So one of the things that I look for is what are the collateral knowledge bases of the instructor, right? So if you've got a guy who we'll say handgun. I'm going to be a handgun instructor because I've decided to be a handgun instructor. I've hung my shingle out. Okay, cool. Well, that's great. It's fantastic if you can demonstrate that you have a working knowledge of the fundamentals of marksmanship and you can impart that information. But what is it that I'm looking for? So if I'm looking for defensive handgun carry, right? I want to learn. I'm going to get my concealed weapons permit so I can carry a gun. The mechanics of how to put lead on steel or copper through paper, that's fantastic. But am I going to get the information necessary to avoid the gunfight, right? As you always say, what's the best way to be successful in a gunfight? Find out when the gunfight's going to be and don't be there. Yeah. And then after the gunfight has happened, now what do I do? How do I keep myself out of prison? How do I keep myself from having to live in a cardboard box under a freaking overpass because I've been sued? So if I have an instructor who all they know how to do is get me to accurately put rounds on paper, that has its purpose, but is that really good training? Is that what I'm looking for? And so I think when you're looking for an instructor and you're looking for a group of instructors, whatever, you need to look at the full width and depth of what it is that they're doing and what it is that they have as a knowledge base and how important the collateral information is to them, to you. Mm-hmm. I know from us, it's not enough for me to teach you how to be able to effectively shoot. I want you to understand all of the stuff that happens to the left and the right of bang. And so that's what I look for when I go get other training, because I do continuing training, as do we rep. And what about you, Jeremy?
So I think it's a sliding scale. I don't think it's binary. It's not good or bad. You can take different things away, once again, depending on kind of what you're looking for, which you alluded to there. But, the sliding scale, I don't think you know what good training is until you've had bad training. You don't know what good sushi is till you've had gas station sushi.
Yeah.
So, it's unfortunately, it's one of those things that if you only get a chance to attend one training class a year, that's what your standard is. Yeah. If you're taking 2 or 3 or whatnot, okay, hey, I kind of like what Rick taught, but not the way that Lee did it. Mm-hmm. So it's, what are you trying to get out of it? How long do you have? What is your investment in the course? Yeah. Can you only afford one class a year? Because let's admit, this stuff isn't cheap. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not even, we can go down a whole rabbit hole about round count, but, what is your investment in time away from your family, away from your job, away from what you do on a day-to-day? Did you give up the family vacation so you could spend $700 to go to the range one weekend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or did you spent $700 to attend somebody's class, but they don't ask the class isn't available on your weekend. Right. So now you dropped a leave slip for 2 days. Mm-hmm. What's a leave slip worth to you, right? And then you got to buy ammo and all. Yeah, so absolutely, the investment dollars racks up pretty damn quick.
So, it all depends on what you try to get out of it, but what are your grading criteria for the class? Mm-hmm. How do you determine what is a good class? Is it the personality of the instructors? Hey, this guy really knew his stuff, but he's got the personality of a dumpster lid. He's great at shooting, but he can't teach me how to shoot because he can't effectively convey that information. Yeah. So, personality of instructors, round count, time involved, what you had to bring to it, it's all kind of, I don't want to call it subjective, but it all depends on what you're trying to get out of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I really think that good training, of course, should be effective training. Right? Those two things are not independent. I think it goes to the shooter themselves, right? So what you mentioned, Jeremy, that this guy may be a great instructor, but he can't convey the information to me. It might work for somebody else, but I think it also a more basic question becomes, what is the shooter's level of knowledge? Yeah. Right. So if you've got a brand new novice shooter, the idea of what is good training to that individual is certainly going to be vastly different to somebody who has been doing it for their entire life.
Yeah.
Right. We've talked about things like immersion training and some of those things where you really got to look at it. There may be the one guy that's out there that, hey, I know the fundamentals of marksmanship, and that is what's really going to be effective for that novice shooter. The novice shooter, whether they want to learn to do defensive shooting, whether they want to get into competition shooting, or they want to go out and do some amusement park type training later on, that individual basis is kind of the same, right? You got to learn the fundamentals of marksmanship. You've got to get into that. But again, if you look back a couple of years ago, everything on the internet was, hey, the 10 jobs you can get into with little or no experience or money. Firearms instructor was one of those, right? So everybody who had a gun sitting in a desk drawer, hey, I can go do a side gig and go be a firearms instructor. Everybody that drove by a recruiter's office, at some point in their life, hey, I can go be a.
I was downrange. I was an operator.
I was downrange. I was an operator, right? And
operating a truck.
hey, so that brings up a good point, right? Yeah. In looking at who the instructors are, right, and evaluating criteria from an instruction standpoint, is he really gets into the ability of that individual to be able to convey knowledge and support to you, right? As you said, what do I want to get out of the class? As a new shooter, it can be pretty kind of wide open.
Well, especially since you don't know what you don't know.
Right. You do not know what you do not know. Yeah. That's exactly right.
This sushi tastes really good.
Yeah.
At Exxon.
Until tomorrow.
Till about midnight.
Till about midnight, right? Yeah. But if you want to get into competitive shooting, maybe the guy that is been downrange and has been doing operational shooting is not the guy that's going to teach you the gaming aspect of competition shooting.
Yeah.
And the guy that is the world class champion may not be the guy you want to get your defensive training from.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Right? Well, and it's a prime example of that. So shout out to Todd Jarrett. Todd's a great dude.
Phenomenal shooter.
Phenomenal shooter, obviously 9-time world champ. And one of the things that I always liked about working around Todd, working with him and training with him and taking classes from him when I worked at Blackwater is Todd, anytime we taught a class, like we were teaching a SWAT team or military guys, first thing Todd would come out and say is, look, I play a game for a living. I don't point guns at live people. I don't ever want to be in a position where people are pointing guns back at me. That's not what I do. And so as a result of that, when he's teaching, he's giving the context of, okay, this is a mechanical operation for putting rounds on target rapidly and effectively. However, it might be a bad tactical decision. You guys will know more about that than I do because I don't have to worry about, telegraphing beyond a barricade and getting fucking sniped as a result of it. And so you're absolutely right, and even if we back away from that, the guy who has been downrange, open carrying with a whole different set of ROEs, or the guy who was a state trooper in Montana without any backup for 20 years, he's going to have a different perspective and he's going to have a different goal set than somebody who goes, okay, you're not a gym rat and you're not super athletic and you're carrying a gun as an equalizer because of the criminal element and you're not a cop, you don't have qualified immunity or those things. If they don't understand that, they don't recognize that. And if you as the end game consumer don't understand and recognize that and don't know to answer those questions or ask those questions, you could find yourself getting taught to do the wrong thing, and then that means that you're getting bad training and you're not getting a good investment out of that.
No,
So yeah,
but let's take that a step further. You've got somebody who's decided, hey, I want to get some training. I've just bought a handgun. I want to take a handgun course. How do I sit there and determine, between two people's basic handgun 101 courses, for lack of better terms? Time, money, round count, all those things. But, does more money equal better training? Does more rounds equal better training?
not necessarily.
Absolutely not.
I would agree with both of you on that one.
That's where you got to do the voir dire. I mean, I work at the gun shop. I carried a gun for a living in a non-permissive environment.
Mm-hmm.
All things being equal, you're going to lean towards the guy who actually has credible experience, which is odd because you might find that we've had this conversation as a rabbit hole on this one, because we're Cold War guys, and then Gulf War. So there were plenty of guys that we knew in the military who never made it to Desert Storm, did their whole time between Vietnam and Grenada, or Vietnam and Desert Storm, who were no bullshit shooters and operationally sound good dudes, just never got the chance to do it.
Right.
But they had been trained to do it, and they had trained to do it and been prepared for it, as opposed to some guy who's a fucking strap hanger and said, well, I'd like to get into this. The guy has good information, can pass on good information. He just hasn't had the opportunity to directly apply it. That doesn't mean he's got bad information.
Right.
I would rather, me personally, I'd rather talk to a guy or get information from a guy like that than from a guy who had the opportunity to go do all that stuff and chose not to and decided to fucking be a LARPer, for lack of a better phrase. But I say
No. You're right. So I mean, you don't have to have been on a dynamic range or two-way shooting range, in order to know the information or be able to pass on the information.
Yeah.
But as you're looking at somebody, if it looks like that, they've gotten their information off of, I went to a class with somebody, or I watched a YouTube video, that might be problematic. And again, I'm gonna throw out the whole barricade thing, right?
Right. You got to get like that Kevlar condom so you don't get splinters.
Yeah. So
Hump that barricade.
when we talk about things like we talk about barricades, right?
Yeah.
So everybody uses the industry standard today is the Vickers barricade, right?
Yep.
But it is used.
barricade.
It is used kind of two different ways, right?
Yeah.
It's used as a barricade. And it's
training
also
device.
as a training device for a barricade. It is also used as a training device as a stable shooting platform.
Yeah, an improvised platform.
An improvised platform. A stable improvised platform.
Yeah.
Those are two unique usage of the same training device.
Yep.
And what we see constantly and consistently is people that are using the barricade, when it's being called a barricade, as a stable platform. Those are two completely different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you have is, when you talk to some people that do instruction, they do not understand that those are two different things. Why? Because they went to a class somewhere, somebody taught them something, they start to conflate the usage of those two different devices into one just generic, generalized thing. And that's where we start coming down, and I get to say, stop dry humping the barricade.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And
But my shot group's our typer. How can I be learning something bad?
so when a barricade starts wobbling around, right? It's not a stable platform, right? It is cover, right? Cover is not necessarily a stable platform.
Cover concealment, and and then you get back to the whole, and then we start talking about gamesmanship, right? So in the IDPA and the IPSC, in the IPSC world, USPSA world, of course, that it might make sense for you to run up and lean against a barricade to make a 100-yard shot. I wouldn't. right? Because we talked about, shared dynamics and recoil management, but I get that. But in a real world application, if that's a barricade and not a prop in the game, now you've locked yourself into an immobile position. You're now having to wait as you manage recoil that's been shared by this device, and you've telegraphed your position. Put a big red flag up. Here I am. Please fucking shoot back at me. And then you ask the question. You go, okay, well, how or why is it that this is happening the way it is? Well, and not to sound like a dick, but at the end of the day, this is how this goes. If you're getting your training about a subject by somebody who has never had practical application of that subject, right? If you go to MIT and your professor of engineering never engineered anything, he never designed anything, he never built anything, he never left college and went out into the world and got paid for some shit that he built, maybe he's not the guy to take that class from, because if it's just theoretical work, how do you then know whether or not the theory is applicable? And if I'm giving you my money, I want to know that what you're telling me is viable, worthwhile shit. One of the things that was great about working at Blackwater back in the day was I do a training session with guys, whoever they were, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whomever they were, and those guys would do their pre-deployment spin up, and they would train, and then they would leave, and they would go down range, and then I'd see those guys 12 months later, and shoot the shit with them, and I'd go, hey, while I'm here, and they go, oh, this thing that we covered, that worked really well. This other thing, not so much. We never had an application for this, but this thing here, this was really good. And then we ended up kind of transitioning that a little bit to this other thing, and this is how it works. So then I got their knowledge back from them, and then the disclosure on that one was when I taught them, and I go, look, I've done this, and we've determined that it works. Some guys that I trained modified it. They came back and told me about the mod. I've never had to use the mod, but they said it works, and I have reason to believe it. So then you get back to, is my instructor credible? And if your instructor is not credible, then you're probably not getting good education. You're probably not getting good training. And then, of course, that falls back into, and then we find ourselves, why is this guy teaching? Because I can make a lot of money, right? Like you said.
And you brought up the round count.
Yeah. Round count's important.
I was going to say, we've been focusing on instructors, be it their background, their currency, their personality, what have you. But yeah, there are other factors.
There are other factors. I mean, if you see here's a weekend course and you need to bring 5,000 rounds.
Is it a fucking machine gunner's course?
I'm really thinking that maybe that would be the course I would shy away from.
Is that 5,000 rounds for a basic handgun course?
Yeah. So I mean,
with a buffet.
With a buffet, right? Yeah.
Most of these handguns aren't going to make it through that course.
I bought a Canic.
All right.
I got 5,000 rounds in a Canic. You better bring some shit.
Up too.
I mean, really, some of the things that we see, in the shooting match, is, lazy reloads, right? Poor trigger control, right? Poor body position, right? And you're watching people in a shooting competition, and you go, you don't understand basic body mechanics. You don't actually understand.
Because you can get away with that, hammering a target at 3 yards.
You don't understand. You don't understand the fundamentals of marksmanship.
Yeah.
And some of them, hey, I took this really cool class. You take this really cool class. Taking this really cool class, and it's like, but you don't have the basic fundamentals.
And you need a rebate from your instructor, because if you took that class and this is how you shoot, you got done.
Right. I mean,
you got the gas station sushi.
You got gas station sushi. Yeah. So, if you're slapping the trigger, right, and you're standing straight up, or as soon as you draw, you go into the 1970s police drama crouch.
Yeah.
Right.
Or that fucking that World War I fucking qual course from the army where you put your hand in your pocket.
I'm not even gonna go there, but
7 paces and draw.
Right.
But we all see it, right? The right, you know, the body, the balance,
oh, yeah.
right? I'm gonna the body balance.
Squat down.
It's like, you know, you got to hammer in those basic fundamentals, and you know the courses you're taking. Really look at that, hammer in those, and you're not going to get that at. Okay, it doesn't even have to be 5,000 rounds. even 1,000 rounds on a basic.
1,000 rounds of a fucking handgun in 2 days is a lot.
Huge.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Especially
huge,
if
right?
this isn't what you do for a living.
Exactly.
You know, if
you're the Sutton drill, right? You know, when you talk about reloads,
yeah,
right? You know, your drill on that it's a low round count, but how do you keep, you know, repeatedly, you know, reloading your weapon, right? It's very low round count, just high mag intensive, right? So,
yeah.
so you practice that mechanical movement over and over and over again. If you're doing a drill where everything is a mag dump and then a reload and then a mag dump and a reload and a mag dump and a reload, you're getting a lot of trigger presses. But what happens with that is you've got guys that you've got instructors that are looking at your reload because this is a reload drill, and then they stop paying attention to your trigger manipulation, right? And I'm getting tired, and I start slapping the trigger. I'm not resetting the trigger correctly because I'm concentrated because this is a reload drill.
And then
but I'm getting more trigger time than I am reload time.
Yeah, but then the other thing that goes along with it from a biomechanics standpoint of it. So you're throwing your gun out there and you're running 15 rounds, and you're doing a reload and you're running 15 rounds, but you're fucking holding that gun out this whole time, and now your shoulders are getting hurt. So now everything's getting tight, and you're now, and again, when you're tired and your brain starts looking for the shortcut, now you're learning shortcuts, and they're shit shortcuts. And then the result of that is that's what you've done the most, that's what you've done last before you leave the range, and you go away because you're all happy because you've shot a shitload of ammo, and you know the guy told you that you're the next fucking John Wick.
And Monday morning
around the fucking coffee, you're like, dude, man, I was there. We fucking shot for 17 fucking hours. I shot 2,000 rounds. I'm a fucking badass. And I have fucking carpal tunnel syndrome now, but that's because I'm a cool dude, right? And the instructor said I was awesome. Okay, great. Because you gave the instructor $800 and you signed up. You signed up for the next class, which is the following week. Yeah. Because the instructor wants you. But whatever. But yeah, so what happens is you develop all these bad fucking habits, and then you show up to the range, and you start shooting your gun on the courses, you know, for a competition, and you're doing the bad shit that you got in the habit of doing, and your instructor never came by and said, hey, slow down, do this. You know, when I'm designing a course, no pun intended, I'm looking for the best bang for the buck, right? Because for starters, everything that we do, I've got a demo, right?
Yeah.
And every time I press the trigger, it costs me 35 cents, right? So I want to be able to demo and not break the bank on me from a logistical standpoint, or, you know, because all the RSOs, I saw buying the fucking ammo for the RSOs anytime we do the demo, right? But then the other aspect of that is, I want to get the student out there, and you got to find that fine line, and part of it has to do with the student, part of it has to do with the class. You go, okay, on average, the average adult needs 4 iterations of a biomechanical skill to hammer it in. As I like to say, the first time you get it right, that was luck. The second time you got it right, that was coincidence. And then the third and fourth time that you got it right, that demonstrates that you really understand and you get it. But if you wear these guys out, if you wear the student out and you exhaust them, and then you bankrupt them by making them shoot all this fucking ammo, then they're going to go downrange, and we've all been there. This is one of the things that fucking kills me, is you'll have a conversation with somebody and they'll be telling you about the guy that, oh, I took this class from this dude. I've been training with this guy for this amount of time. And you go, okay, cool. And you watch them shoot and you go, either that guy is a shit instructor and he's not paying attention to you, or you really don't pay any attention, or there's a combination of the two. Yeah, and it has to do with round count, because people equate round count so many times with, well, I got to shoot a lot of rounds. Well, no, it's like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym one time a month, right?
Yeah.
Then you're never going to get fit. If you go to the gym for an hour every Monday, right? You'll get strong, you'll get fit, you'll get decent at this. Same thing happens with shooting or playing the fucking guitar. But if you can go to the gym 20 minutes a time, 3 times a week, lock into that, you're going to get stronger, you're going to get faster, you're going to get better in less time. Because over time, the more often you do it, even in shorter iterations, the better off you're going to be. Same thing with shooting. Like when I was still shooting competitively, right? So we'd have team training days where I'd shoot 700 rounds on a team training day in 5 hours. And then the rest of the week, I would come out here to the executive range just with a standard loadout, just the 6 mags on my belt. And I would run drills until I ran all the ammo out of my belt, and I packed my shit up and left. But I did it every day. And as a result of that, I never got exhausted, I never got tired, I never got beat down, and I never started developing bad habits. And then again, also, I wasn't spending 500 rounds every time I went to the range, and you know, at that time, burning up the team's money. But the team's money was still, you know, money that we had to work and earn.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, round count's important, and frequency. I mean, that's a natural segue there. If you're gonna shoot 5,000 rounds a year, and that's gonna be your shooting budget. You've been there. You've been there, right? You were first sergeant. I did some of that as a gunny in the Marine Corps. Okay, here's our ammo allotment for the year for a company. How many times are we going to get in ranges?
Right.
Well, if we only go to the range when we go to the summer FX, then we're just engaged in ballistic masturbation. But if we can get a range every other month, our shooters are going to be better. You know, I mean,
that's definitely one way to look at it. But I mean, yeah. So round count, you know, how much is reasonable to get in let's say a weekend.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, another one, you know, hey, what's the vetting of students?
Yeah.
You know, hey, you know, do you need to complete my pistol 101 to get to pistol 202?
Well, if we're going to gun site, yeah. Wait. You're at Dev Group? No. You're going to have to take pistol number 1 through number 7 before you can come take pistol 8.
But, you know, same thing. But just because somebody completed pistol 101 with you, does that mean they can come to pistol 202? Hey, I did pistol 101 this week. I see you got an opening for pistol 202 next week. Can I come to pistol 202? Hold on there, Slick. Yes, you completed the basics for 101. Yeah. You might want to go back and get in some dry fire wraps and get in your own personal time before you come back to 202. Or is it just, hey, I got another student, that's another $800. Great, yeah, come on down.
I think you kind of that's an interesting aside, you know, to look at. You know, to have a hard rule, if you don't take this from me, you can't take this next one. As opposed to looking at the student and going, hey, yes, you've got this background, you've done these things, you want to get into this other thing, yeah, sure, you're
because there's no instantly standard, you know, because I took pistol 101 from Joe Bob means I can take pistol 202 from AgDef Saul or whatever.
Well, and it's true, right? There are no standards. There are no standards in training in today's you know gun community. But it is, you know, having somebody that wants to sign up for an advanced course that you haven't taught before, of going, hey, let me know what your background is, right? Because you've done that, right? We've done that, right? We've done that, right? But to say, yeah, if you haven't taken 101, I don't care who you are, where you come from, you can't take my 400 level class. You've got to go through everything, right? I think that's a good thing to look at as far as at least I'm going to call it just the ethics of who you're going to go train with, right? Because if it's simply money, right? If it's simply you can't do these things because you haven't taken this class, that's just I just want your money.
No,
right?
but at the same time, I'm sure all three of us have seen where you have had a student that majorly overrepresented themselves and their abilities. It's like, hey,
that's a great point.
Maybe this isn't the course for you. Here's your money back. I'm not going to waste either of our time this weekend.
And so we've actually done that.
Absolutely.
So I mean, the way it works with us is, and I wish more people did it this way, quite honestly. But so when we put a class out, and this is one of the reasons that we don't do, level 1, level 2, I mean that's sort of shit, right? Master's level, fucking
advanced handgun operator.
Yeah, advanced handgun operator, barricade humping and buffet class. But one of the things that I do is I go, okay, here's what you're going to do in this class. No bullshit. This is what we're going to do. If you're up for that, if you're honest with yourself and you go, yeah, I can do this, I'm going to take you at your word. Now, you might be at the bottom level able to do it. Or you might be at the top level. But realistically, if you're at the top level, you ought to be able to... Sorry, I thought you were waving at me.
No.
She just flies off. You ought to be able to get something out of that class, right? But I've had people who said, oh yeah, I can do all that. They come out for like a carbine operators class. They come out and go, okay, we're going to start talking about these things and we're going to do things, and they don't know how to work their way around the carbine. And I go, okay, look, here's the deal.
They've never field stripped it and cleaned it because it's brand new. And
so here's the deal.
So it's cosmoline on it.
If you want, you can stay, but you got to understand that I can't allow you to hold up the class. So if you can stay and get something out of this, you may do so. And if not, we'll give you a partial refund, right? Because you signed up for the class and that took somebody's seat, and we were upfront about what we expected of you, right? So
absolutely,
if the class is a waterborne carbine operators class, and we go, yeah, during the class you're going to have to swim in full kit, and you show up and you're fucking terrified of the water. You can't swim. You're a fucking unk rock, dude. You should have seen this coming, right? And so you got to be ethical as an instructor. You got to be ethical as a student. But yeah, the whole idea of, and I ran into some classes with this when I was teaching, for Blackwater and going to other companies. Well, if you haven't taken this class, you can't take that class. And I go, and then my answer to that has always been, and we've had some of that, is go, tell you what, you say that you want to shoot in this class, and I don't know that you have the background for it. Day 1 of the class, I'll run you through the qual drills for the level 1 class, as it were.
Let me clip out of it.
And if you're good, then you can stay. And if not, it's probably in the place for you to get what it is that you need. But that requires that the instructor and the organization be upfront and clear and honest, and it requires that the client be honest. We've all been there where, oh yeah, I shoot all the time. I'm a constantly shooter. I know all this good. Okay, cool. Yeah, because I've got a CMMG and I've got a Daniel Defense and I'm carrying a staccato. I've got Trigicons on. Oh, I know what I'm talking on. Okay, cool. And the guy shows up with all his Gucci gear, and then you're like, all right, well, lock your bolt to the rear on that M4 and let's take a look at it. And he can't figure where the bolt lock is. Well, this isn't like what I'm used to. I'm like, really? Are you used to like a fucking AK or something? 'Cause that's industry standard for the M4 platform since 1962. Yeah, so and then so I mean, then you get into the whole. Now I got to look after my other students. How can it?
What's
how we carry this guy?
There goes into a whole different thing. Understanding what the student to instructor ratio is.
I was just about to say that.
Right. And right.
And
is there just some guy there? Right?
Yeah, give me 30 students so I can maximize my freaking overhead.
I've got a lead instructor and I got some other guy there that doesn't understand what they're doing.
Well, he's taking a class to learn.
No. I have no problem with having.
He's in my pyramid scheme.
Right. He's buying my Amway toothpaste.
I have no problem with bringing people in to teach them to be an instructor or
Yeah.
But if we pretty much stick with a 1-to-6 student instructor ratio, right? Because how many people can you watch?
Yeah.
Right. And if I got more than 6, right, students are always asking questions.
Yeah.
Right? And that guy that's not on the line is really needs to be able to answer those questions. And it can't be, I just have some guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And so and so of course the way we handle that is it's 1-to-6 student to instructor in the class. I've worked for companies, not Blackwater, but I've worked for other companies that the goal it's 1-to-8 on the line. So you can have you by yourself can have 32 students. You just can't have any more than 8 of them on the line at any given time. Well, so the way we do it obviously is, if we've got 18 folks, then realistically what we end up doing is we split it in half. And I put 2 instructors on the line, the rest of the shooters off the line with an instructor. And the instructor on the back behind the line is expected to be talking to them and going, okay, see what that guy's doing right there? This is why that's good. See that right there? That's
Here's
not,
why
that's,
we do this
is why we
way.
do that. Yeah, because that way the education and the learning is occurring the whole time the students are there, because you're round robbing them, as opposed to, because I've been in the class, the police department sent me,
just sitting here
sent me in class. Me and another 15 other strap hammers
We're just
standing around waiting for my opportunity to go up there and
waiting for your
fire
turn.
15 rounds and dump mags and and
You're just waiting for your turn to get back into the class.
Yeah.
And you're right, without somebody back there. So I think that is something that a new student or a new shooter rather can really.
Absolutely.
That's a good question to ask. And your point on it is the student to instructor ratio. But I really hadn't thought. You're right that it's the student to instructor
Exposure, if you will.
Overall, right? Is it just the number of students on the line that is your ratio, or is it the total number in the class? And are those extra instructors? Are they really instructors? Or are they
RSO?
Are they just
Safety
RSOs?
observers, yeah.
Or just safety observers?
Yeah.
Right. So I think those are kind of good questions to ask when you're kind of vetting your training as
As an
a
organization,
new shooter, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Coming in. So we've been at it for a while. Any saved rounds or alibis?
Just
There might be a part 2 of this in the future when we think of something that.
Well,
sure. We could probably sit here for 3 hours.
Yeah, it's an especially if we had brown water.
Yeah.
It's an ever evolving operation. But thanks for the insight. Thanks for the information. I appreciate it. Hope you guys found it entertaining and enjoyable. I don't know if anybody got their feelings hurt. So I don't know if
some feelings got hurt today. I'm sure. I'm sure.
Were they operators?
They were the
buffet
operators.
operators.
They're the buffet operators. Yeah.
All right.
So.
Thanks again. So that's it. Follow us, keep an eye on us, and if you have any interest, send us some information so we can talk shit on whatever it is you want us to talk shit about at the end of the day. Thanks. Be safe.
Take care. So I think it's a sliding scale. I don't think it's binary. It's not good or bad. You can take different things away. Once again, depending on kind of what you're looking for, which you alluded to there.